Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for being here this evening. And before I get into this any deeper, I'd like you to go ahead and just do a sound check for me, if you would. You have an ability on the side there to ask questions, and also, if you just give me a thumbs up or let me know that you're hearing me, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. So I just want to ensure that the sound is going out there to you. Good afternoon once again. My name is Dr. Robert Bartosh, and I am very pleased and honored that you are here to share your time with me, that I might share this information with you. And in this presentation, what I want to do is to talk about calming your anxiety, okay? Calming your anxiety. So again, I do want to welcome you and get into this a little bit deeper, because as we'll find out, this is a situation that's affecting far more people than would care to admit it. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to take me off the screen, and we're going to focus on what I have here before the screen, so that I don't create any more undue anxiety. Okay, all right. So with that, let's talk about anxiety here. You know, anxiety is a normal feeling for everybody. There are moments in our lives when we become anxious because we don't know the results. You know, for some of you that have taken tests and you had to wait on getting the results, or to find out what the final verdict might be in a situation, or if you were purchasing a home and you didn't know if the seller was going to accept your offer. There's a lot of circumstances like that in our lives, and it makes us anxious. But what happens is this: in our stress-laden society, I mean, we are meeting ourselves coming and going. We have the technology, and actually it's becoming burdensome to us, in that we are inundated with enormous amounts of emails. And if you're on the Facebook pages, you're finding that you're bombarded with all kinds of different advertisements, or people telling you that they have the cure for this and they have the cure for that, and everybody's garnering after you for your attention. Then we have our standards today, where people are expected to act a certain way, to look a certain way, to dress a certain way. And if you don't fit that particular mold, then you become anxious or under stress or burdened, if you will. And this anxiety, this anxiousness starts to bear fruit. It starts to grow or blossom, if you will, until it becomes such a burden that the individual becomes in bondage to it. They're afraid they're going to say the wrong thing. They're afraid they're going to do the wrong thing. They're not going to look the right way, or they're going to act the wrong way, or the work that they do isn't going to be received well, or somebody's going to outdo them or outperform them, or whatever it might be. And we see this even with our young people. They're under this tremendous stress today, with peer pressures coming from every angle. So this is what we're talking about here, a normal physiological human response that over time, because we're inundated with these things, becomes burdensome to us, wherein we become in bondage to it. And what happens as a result is we can't enjoy life. We basically become a worrisome individual. We become an individual that's looking every way that they possibly can in order to ensure that they're doing the right thing. And the bottom line is, the individual begins to live in fear. It's a perpetual torment in this bondage, and they live in fear constantly. They're never good enough. Well, anyway, I think I've made that point to you. But those of you that are accustomed to dealing with this anxiety, I know it's not going to come to as any surprise to you to know that it's one of the most commonly experienced mental illnesses, and that's what it is. It is a literal bona fide mental illness that's experienced among many adults in the United States. As a matter of fact, the current statistics are showing us that it's affecting over 40 million people plus each and every year. That comes to about 18, maybe to 20% of our population. And the curious thing is that about this, it's only that about 36% of those 40 million people, of those suffering with this, are seeking any treatment at all. Why? Well, one of the reasons is the stigma that's associated with this. You know, you're not in control, you're not above, you're not all these things, you know, that people are thinking you should be. So because of that shame that's associated with it, or the stigma, as I said earlier, there are many people that are suffering that don't seek any treatment at all. And unlike, or just like I should say, any other type of problem, if you don't deal with it, the problem only gets worse and worse and worse. So this tells us, or tells me really, several things. One of these things is that anxiety as an issue is not taken seriously enough, because many people they dismiss it in the early stages. Oh, it'll go away, I can handle it, it's just a passing thing. And they don't take it seriously enough and allow it to continue. And when it does, then it gets worse and worse and worse, and not only affects them, but it affects others around them too. And also, another is that there must be some issue surrounding the actual treatment. That also has a stigma and a failure rate that's being recommended to these people as well. So if you or somebody you know or someone you love or whatever has ever been prescribed the drugs to help you so-called fight the anxiety, then you know very well that the medication only has varying levels of success in combating these systems. And that's not what you want to do. You don't want to combat it. You want to have victory over it. And for some people, you know, the medications, they have positive results. I admit that. But I will tell you also they're short-lived at best, only to be graduated to another more potent medication to replace the one that they were on. And for some people, those medications simply do not work at all. So getting back to the stats, you know, 65%. That's 7 out of 10 individuals that are suffering with anxiety in America. What they're doing is currently taking prescribed drugs daily, every single day, and they do it regularly. And it's very interesting to consider that this large percentage of people who take the drugs, given that the stats also show that only 10% of those that suffer are receiving adequate treatment, continue to take them. So what I just said was, out of all of these people that are taking the drugs, only 10% out of all the people taking the drugs ever are getting any benefit from them. And it's also worrying to consider that out of all the people struggling with anxiety and actually receiving the over-the-counter treatment, there is, with that also, there's a very, very low percentage that's effective as well. And with these medications, I would remiss if I didn't state that if you listen carefully to these drugs that are attempting to be sold to you via the internet or the television or the radio or whatever media it might be, many of those drugs will not only increase the anxiety for which the person is taking the drug, but it will also develop into depression as well. And that's one of the side effects that they kind of dismiss as quickly as they possibly can. So this only strengthens the suggestion that the solution is probably not pharmaceutically based. It's not in a drug, or at very least, the anxiety drugs aren't working, and they're certainly not for everyone. So now that we've covered that, let's get into a different approach here. This holistic health and natural remedy approach, which is gaining a lot of popularity, and I'm happy to say that, because people are becoming wise and they're becoming more discriminate, and they're becoming much more selective when it comes to their health. Now, holistic health, it's not anything new actually, but it is becoming increasingly popular because there's a globalized pharmaceutical companies, you know, they continue to dominate the medical industry. And there's a rising and increasing dissatisfaction with modern medicine. And it's giving a rise to the interest then of the different approach, which, as I said, is holistic health or natural remedies. But what is this in fact? Well, In our center, our approach is to take into account all of the varying aspects of the individual's life and the individual as well as potential causes and remedies to the disease, whatever it might be. Not just dealing with anxiety, but in every and in all situation. This means that all aspects of the individual's life, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the social, and this is a huge burden, the social. We even have young people that are being bullied, and as a result, they're committing suicide. I mean, this is the level to which this has risen. And not only the social aspect, but also the spiritual health of the individual. And all of these contribute to the overall well-being of the person. And so much of modern day healthcare, what it does, it focuses on attacking the illness. Well, we don't want to attack the illness. What we want to do is we want to identify the cause or the causative factors, of which there are usually many. And as we do that, then the solution will present itself. So that's the approach that we take. It's more a wholesome approach to creating and sustaining overall better health, being proactive, if you will. Now, there are a few imbalances of the body and the mind that can't be treated perhaps as effectively or quickly with what are called holistic remedies. And so for those that suffer from anxiety, that are being burdened, maybe they need what's called crisis intervention. And but as awareness of mental health issues like anxiety continue to spread, we're going to have individuals from all around the world, and what they're doing now, they're beginning to study the benefits of looking at the lifestyle instead of the lure of the prescription drugs. Now, I want to tell you, though, unlike debilitating diseases like arthritis, where you get these things, anxiety and depression, it's basically a silent enemy, and it's afflicting a lot of people, even unbeknownst to them. And what we've got to do is we've got to wake up, and we've got to see that depression is a national and it's a global epidemic. Just in the United States, as I said earlier, over 18%, that's 40 million people suffer with anxiety and depression, and that number is increasing at an alarming rate. So what you need to do is you need to be informed. And what I'd like to do is to show you some of the very areas where anxiety and depression may be coming from. And I want to tell you, don't let anyone ever intimidate you into stop looking for the causes of your illness, because that's where the solution will be found. You always want to look for the cause. And if you harness yourself with a doctor, make sure that is their mantra as well. Make sure that he or she is going after the cause and not just trying to be palliative and deal with the effects. All right? Because life is much too short, and it's time to take the reins by the hand, and you need to get cracking, because life is as a tiny vapor. It's a drop, and it appears for an instant, and then it's gone. How many of us on at a certain age can look back and say, gosh, I don't know where the time flies. I don't know where it went. So the bottom line is, you don't want to waste your life, you know what I mean, spinning your wheels, so to speak. You want to find what the cause is. You want to get back to enjoying life to its fullest, because your body's fearfully and wonderfully made. It wants to be well. And if you want to get better and you want to bring happiness and joy back into your life, then you absolutely owe it to yourself to be absolutely certain that you have each of the following causes thoroughly checked. Now, this is due diligence, because your health is your responsibility. Now, one of the areas that I would recommend, especially if you are of the female persuasion, this is what you want to do, because so many times ladies are dismissed when they go to the doctors. They're just given one pill after another, and told finally it's all in your head, or you've got to learn to live with it, or they're given some kind of suppressant that just dulls them, and they walk around for the rest of their livelong days in a fog. They can't function. They're in a stupor. So this is what I'm going to suggest you do. Number one, I want you to know, and as my responsibility as a physician is to educate, so I want you to know right now that there are over 15, maybe 20% of the people that are being treated for anxiety and depression. The bottom line is this: they have a thyroid deficiency. Now, I got to stop there because you may have said, hey, wait, doc, I went to the doctor and they checked my thyroid and they said that, I'm healthy. Everything was fine. Well, let's go back to the drawing board, so to speak, because these are the tests that I have to emphasize that you must have done in order to be able to make that statement that your anxiety and your depression isn't stemming from an ill thyroid, okay? Because many doctors, all they do is what's called a TSH. What you've got to do is this, and you can write these down. Listen to this later again and write them down. And when you go in to have your blood tested for your thyroid, make sure that all of these, because anything less than what I'm going to share with you now is simply unacceptable. It is unacceptable, and you're not getting the information that you deserve to get. Okay, so what you want to do is have your doctor check the TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone. You also, in this panel, you want to have the doctor run a test. Included would be a free serum thyroxine, or otherwise known as the FT4, the free T4. Then you want a free triiodothyronine. That's what a free triiodothyronine. And that's an FT3, the free T3. Then also you want to do or have done a reverse T3, or otherwise known as an RT3. Then also you want the anti-thyroglobulin antibodies tested. That's the anti-thyroglobulin antibodies, as well as the anti-thyroid peroxidase antibodies. These are going to be antibodies working against your thyroid. The anti-thyroid peroxidase antibodies you want to take, and those are known as the anti-TG or the anti-TPOs. So that's what you've got to do. It's well documented that the evaluation of only using the TSH for the thyroid is inadequate as a means of testing it. So if you've been told by your physician that your thyroid's fine and you haven't had the above tests or these tests that I just shared with you, then think again. Your physician does not have all the facts, and neither do you, okay? The comprehensive thyroid panel will also test the possibility of you suffering from any kind of a thyroid autoimmune depression syndrome. This is serious stuff because, again, if a fire is not detected, it's going to burn down the whole structure in which it's burning in. And if this thyroid isn't tested, then I'm going to tell you that you're going to get worse and worse and worse. You're going to think that you're healthy and it's not coming from the thyroid, and they're going to be giving you other drugs that are going to be, who knows what they're going to do. But I will tell you, they're going to give you other drugs and they're going to miss the mark when all along it could have been your thyroid. Now, also, another common cause, and I said common because it is. And when I use the word common, I mean 6 out of 10. That's pretty common. Another common cause is the relationship between nutritional deficiencies, chemical toxins, and the development of clinical anxiety, and or clinical depression, or being depressed. Now, the medical literature itself is overflowing with what are called peer-reviewed abstracts, and they prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that depression, anxiety is definitely related to nutritional deficiencies and chemical toxicities. And honest to goodness, we are in a chemical-laden society, and there's so many toxins that you and I are exposed to. Our bodies require optimal levels of trace minerals, such as magnesium, zinc, vanadium. That's just to name a few, and they have to have those in order to function fully and properly. You can't have too much and you can't have too little. You need just the right balance. And I say that because there's a lot of people today that are being treated by the doctor they find on the internet, or they become Dr. Google, and they go and they see themselves on the internet, and then they go and they diagnose themselves, and then they find sites that they can treat themselves and whatnot. Or they go to a what do you call it, multi-level marketing meeting, and the individual there is getting points and making money on selling these supplements that are cure-alls now. And this is what you need. And they might even do some muscle testing, or I don't wave feathers, or have you smell this, or whatever it might be. And then from that, they're going to go ahead and they're going to diagnose you, and they're going to tell you that you need to have more of this and you need to have that because this is what it shows. Well, look, your body, fearfully and wonderfully made. It is more exotic than the exotic automobile. It is precise. It is pristine. It requires just the right balances. And if you're going to put your health in the hands of an individual, then it would behoove you to go to a learned source that has a track record and that knows what he or she is talking about and is current with the information out there. Because if you get excesses and or deficiencies of these types of minerals, it can set off symptoms of even worse anxiety and or depression. For instance, if you have low levels of zinc, you can develop with a condition that's called resistant depression. That means that regardless of what's thrown at it, what you do, there is a resistance that's put up by the body because it's protecting itself, and you just get deeper and deeper and deeper into depression because your body is a self-preserving entity, and it will protect itself against the onslaught of all of these things. Now, deficiencies of magnesium. If you have a deficiency, and there's 8 different types of magnesium, so what we want to do is, and I'm not here, let me say the disclaimer right now, this is not intended to diagnose and or treat you in any way, shape, or form, but as a clinician, I will tell you that there are 8 different types of magnesium. You must identify which you would be deficient in, and if you are, it can bring on a wide variety. Now listen, I'm very serious about this. It can, if you have deficiencies in particular types of magnesium, it can bring on a wide variety of psychiatric symptoms that are related to depression, anxiety, and even psychosis. I'm telling you, folks, that your health is nothing to be played around with. You need to get as serious about taking care of your health as you do seeing to it that you take your pet to the best vet in the area, or you're giving them the best nutrients and the best foods that you can get out there. You know what I'm saying? You need to respect yourself that much. And getting back to this point, research has revealed that there is a definite link between high levels of the mineral vanadium and even manic symptoms. So if you're taking a supplement that has too much vanadium in it, you can actually become manic. You can become a manic depressive. You can become all kinds of manifestations of clinical manic symptoms. And this is by just taking these different supplements. Now, another thing is the chemical connection, because these chemicals can go through what's called the blood-brain barrier, and they become very toxic to your brain. One of the big problems with chemicals is that they have a nasty ability to sneak up on you because we're creatures of habit and we're exposed to them on a daily basis. And when you least expect it, it can develop over time. And as they do, you can develop all of these symptoms that come out of the supposed, they come out of the blue, so to speak, when in fact they've been developing over time. Now, most of the chemical sensitivities, and that's what your body is now developing, a sensitivity to these chemicals, they do sneak up on an individual, we'll say over a period of weeks or months or even years. And they slowly damage not only your brain, but they also damage the body's detoxification pathways. It becomes ineffective in cleaning this garbage out of you. And it's not unusual for a person to experience really a sudden onset of depression. It just comes out of the clear blue. and they can do this. Listen, you can. It can happen when a person is remodeling their house. So we'll just say hypothetically that, you tear out the old carpeting and new carpeting is installed, or a building is being renovated, or you do some fresh painting of the house or whatever, your sitting room or whatever it might be. And then one of the members of the families becomes clinically depressed, or they become very anxious, or they start to act erratic, or there's all kinds of abnormalities that show up. Well, this is a result of the chemicals that are affecting the brain and affecting your detoxification pathways. Let me explain some basic biochemistry so that I can make this clear to you. Now, in order for your body to detoxify chemical toxins, your body requires adequate amounts. We get back to the zinc. It's really, really important. It requires adequate amounts of zinc. And zinc runs the enzyme that's called alcohol dehydrogenase. And it is this important enzyme which is responsible for detoxifying everyday home and office chemicals. I mean, the stuff that you are subjected to every day. Zinc runs the show, so to speak. And the most common chemicals that we find or are subjected to, they're found in things like our carpets, our home furnishings, whether it's couch or sitting chairs, or our bedding. At the office, copy machines. Believe it or not, the copy machines, the secretarial whiteout that you see the individuals using, or commercial floor cleaners, at-home polishers, waxes, glues, adhesives. And all kinds of other common household and office surroundings. It's a chemical that, if you look in many of your cleaning products, many of the materials, if you look on the labels, you may see a chemical that's called trichloroethylene, okay? Trichloroethylene, all right? So that when you see that on there, you don't have to know how to spell it, just verbalize it, okay? It's trichloroethylene. All right, and I'm not being condescending. I'm just wanting to convey this to you, to communicate it to you, so that when you look at your cleaning products, if you hear something that reminds you of the word I just said, then you are literally, over time, you are poisoning yourself. And I will say this emphatically: you are killing yourself. You're destroying your brain. You're destroying the body's ability to detoxify yourself. And you know what happens is this too. Now, I've said all that. Now think about it. When we're at home in the wintertime, where do we spend all our time? We spend our time indoors. We don't go out because of the weather, because of the snow, because of the impassable roadways, because it's cold, because it's dark early and we don't want to go out in the dark. We also turn up the heat. That increases the off-gassing. We keep the windows closed. So we have all of these chemicals that we're just breathing in all the time, over and over and over again. And you see that trichloroethylene, that can cause depression. When you're exposed to this chemical, it's likely that, you've either inhaled it or you may even have absorbed it through your skin. That the bedding, or you're sitting on a seat, or you're wearing it in a clothing that's been sprayed, dry cleaned or whatever, and it's going into your system here. And normally, this chemical, like most chemicals, is going to be neutralized by your body, because your body, as I said, and I know it sounds trite, but I'm as serious now when I say it as I was earlier. Your body's been fearfully and wonderfully made, and it's a self-preserving, self-cleaning entity. So it's always cleaning itself out, or attempting to do so. And what it will do for many of these chemicals, when the body has the ability to do so, when your health is maintained, you're getting the nutrients you need, and it's working at near its full potential, then it's neutralizing these chemicals and it's detoxifying itself, and those things are being eliminated. However, if your body's ability to neutralize these chemicals is impaired, Again, getting back to a possible zinc, deficiency, the chemical can back up and it will accumulate. And where will it? It will accumulate in fatty tissue. And one of the fattiest reservoirs we have in the body is the brain. It's 60, 70% fat. And that's where these chemicals are going to accumulate, in the brain. Is it any wonder then, I ask you, I mean, for every action, there's always an equal and an opposite. You have to look around you. There's an ever increasing rate of autism, and all of the disorders on the three autism spectrums. There's an increase in dementias. There's an increase in Alzheimer's. There's an increase in diabetes that has to do with the brain as well. And not only are the numbers increasing, but the ages that are being affected, the ages of the individuals, is reducing. It's not reserved for the elderly anymore. We're seeing it in younger and younger and younger people. And when I say seeing it, I'm talking specifically about dementia and Alzheimer's as well. See? So this is what's going on. When you're exposed to it, that's what's happening. And gosh, I don't know, some of you, if your body's ability to neutralize the chemicals is impaired, then it's going to back up, like I said. And it's going to be converted. It's going to be, boy, I don't want to get too clinical here, but it will. I will tell you this, that trichloroethylene, it's going to be converted into a chemical that we call chlorohydrate. And if you're a baby boomer, listen to me, if you're a baby boomer that's listening to this, you may remember back when the old Mickey Finn or the knockout drops. Remember that? This is exactly, and this is how the person reacted then, and this is how the person who is reacting to these chemicals would manifest now. They would feel spacey, dizzy, dopey, unable to concentrate, foggy brained, or very depressed. And sometimes you can feel this when you're out of your house, if your house is the culprit. When you're out of the house, you just got to get out of the house. You feel better. You're breathing some air, you're moving around, you have a change of environment, and the body's able to maybe clear out some of these toxins, and you feel pretty good for a while, only to return to your house, and after a while, you start to feel those symptoms again. You feel spacey, dizzy, dopey, you can't concentrate, you're falling asleep, you can't stay awake, foggy brained, and you get very depressed, and I have no idea why I'm so depressed. Doc, I don't know what it is, I have a great marriage, my kids, and I love where I'm working, but I just feel I don't understand what it could be. It could very well be what I just shared with you. Now, listen, I also want to tell you that there's no one treatment that's going to fix everybody. You take 10 people that are suffering with anxiety and depression, and it's likely that the cause and the treatment's going to be different for all 10 of them. That's the point I want to drive home to you. That's why you need to get to an educated source. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's not a sweeping generalization. You've got to assess each person individually, find out all about them. Because with that in mind, what you've got to do is you got to be certain that you're dealing with what's causing the problem in the first place. You might very well be suffering from a zinc deficiency, which would interfere with the body's ability to effectively eliminate the chemical off-gassing from your new carpet. Or it could be something else. It could be a thyroid that's struggling, or it could be a magnesium that's deficient in your system. All of these things, again, what works for one will undoubtedly, and I've seen it over the years, it'll undoubtedly fail for another. Even people in the same household. I have had different treatment protocols for people that have lived together for 40, 50, 60 years of marriage, and they're suffering the same things. They have anxiety, they're depressed, or whatever it might be, but the protocol that we create for the one individual may be totally different for the other individual, because they're different bodies. They're different bodies, okay? So what you've got to do is you got to look at the cause here. and look at it. So your physician has to, when you go to your doc, they've got to conduct a thorough and a rather exhaustive interview, a consult, to determine what directions they need to go in. For one individual, your doctor may determine that you're showing signs where the thyroid or the cortisol levels would be a good start. And remember, I said start because it may not be the end; it may be only the beginning, where one test will reveal something, and then you go after that something only to reveal something else by using another test. So what you've got to do, you've got to check all of these things, and maybe checking for the chemical toxicities or the nutritional deficiencies would be the way to go for another one. No matter what it is, though, the recommending of an antidepressant for anxiety or depression without being this type of a detective or doing this detective work, it's really, in my estimation, in my opinion, humbly, I would say to you, it's not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. So look, like I gave you that stuff about the going to your doctor with the thyroid. If you think, if you're listening to this, if you think that your anxiety or your depression could be linked to a possible chemical toxicity, maybe it's not at home, but it's at work. They've got all this new stuff now, and these, oh gosh, I don't want to get it. Or it could be due to a nutritional deficiency. Then I'd recommend that this is what you do. When you go to your doctor, ask him or her to do these tests, because it's better when it comes to your health and your future to err on the side of being too cautious than not enough. You know what I mean? That's my position. And also, you may go, oh, but I don't know that insurance will cover this stuff. Look, I respect that. I understand that. I live in the same world that you do, but it's far less inexpensive to be proactive than it is to be reactive. It's far less expensive to do the testing now, to find the problems and nip them in the bud, to stop them, than it is later on down the road to try to contend with a full-blown problem that now has spilled over into this system and that system, and you're dealing with a myriad of things on various fronts, and your life now, your quality of life stinks. You can't enjoy living. You're weak. You can't get out, and you're just being inundated with all kinds of chemicals, different prescriptions and whatnot. Okay, that's my little soapbox spiel at this moment. So let's get back to the test. The test that I would suggest you do would be what's called, if you think it's a chemical or a nutritional deficiency, you'd be well served if you got what's called an RBC, mineral toxic chemical assay. It's called an RBC, mineral toxic chemical assay. Then also you can get what's called a toxic effects score, and a urine toxic metals, because your body's going to be dumping all of this garbage. It's good to see what's being dumped by your body, and you'll have a clear picture of what's inside that body. Okay? So again, just to review, an RBC, mineral toxic chemical assay, your doctor, if he or she's not aware, they can look it up. The labs that they use, they'll have these available. And also the toxic effects score and the urine toxic metals. And if your doctor, if he goes to his or her lab that doesn't do these things, then find a lab that does. Real simple, okay? Because depression, anxiety, they're mental diseases, and they're claiming new victims every day, and I don't want you to be one of those victims. I want you to be victorious, because the causes of these mental diseases, they can range, like I said, they can stem from a thyroid problem, a cortisol problem, deficiencies with magnesium or zinc, to chemical toxins, to toxins that you're exposed to each and every day. Okay? So thank you for allowing me to share that amount of information. It's very, 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 very important. It's paramount indeed. So now let's talk about what you can do on the home front. Okay? So let's talk about the foods that you eat, your diet. Okay? That 4-letter word. And this is not to lose weight or anything. This is to to fuel you, to get you as healthy as you can possibly be. So let's knock out what you shouldn't eat, okay? Now look, if you're serious, then you need to listen to what I'm saying to you here. One of the predominant contributing factors to the optimum health, to enjoying the best performance of your life, is going to be controlled by you, by the foods that you eat. You got to eat foods that are right in order to promote the healthy body that you're after and the mind that you're wanting to live with. See, you've got to do that. It's really the key to achieving balance, not only, like I said, in your physical health, but more importantly, as we age, in our mental health as well. And in terms of anxiety and depression, there are certainly foods that we can find that will accentuate, that will actually make the symptoms worse. And there are going to be foods that are going to relieve you. They're going to make the symptoms reduce and even, go away to some extent. Now, this depends, of course, on the severity of your symptoms and also the person's physical health. And I say that because you've got to take all these factors into consideration. Because, my Bible teaches me that if you affect one member, you affect all the members. So if you are being affected in this system, in this expression where you're experiencing anxiety and or depression, then I can with certainty tell you that other systems of your body are being affected as well. So what we've got to do is we've got to look at the overall physical health of the individual, okay, in order to definitely and specifically recommend what foods are going to aid you. But generally, overall, these are some of the foods that increase the severity of anxiety and depression, okay? So some of the foods are this. Caffeine is one. And I'm going to stop here for a moment because I promote a caffeine drink, a coffee. It's a coffee that I believe, in my exhaustive, and I'll say that unabashedly, my exhaustive research, it is, in my clinical opinion, the best coffee that's out there. And believe me, when I teach the doctors and they go back and they treat their patients, I better know what I'm talking about, and I'm obligated to tell the truth. These coffees are the cleanest, purest, no chemical. We don't want to add chemicals, right? We don't want the chemical toxicity. We don't want to deplete your body of any kind of nutritional deficiencies and whatnot. So this is a little commercial, I should say. Most of the coffees out there are dirty, they're toxic, and they're high in certain chemicals that will exacerbate. They worsen the anxiety and or the depression. So look, if you want to find out what a good coffee is, contact our office. We'll be more than happy to share that with you. But again, caffeine is going to worsen the severity of the anxiety and the depression. Refined sugar, all your sugars, and there's even some fruits, but the sugars primarily, all of the refined sugars are going to worsen it. Hydrogenated oils, and I won't get into what they are. Man-made oils, I mean these hydrogenated, these trans fats. All you got to do is think fried foods. Think vegetable oil, canola oil, peanut oil, corn oil. What else is there? Safflower oil. All those are garbage oils, junk oils. Just think of fried foods. And then fast foods. All these foods worsen anxiety and they worsen depression. And the high sodium foods, if you do these these microwavable foods and the fast food, they're loaded with a lot of sodium. And also the trans fats that I mentioned earlier, the processed foods, the box, the bag, the can, all those processed foods. And the soy foods, a lot of your condiments, they have the soy in them. It's garbage. It's junk. It'll worsen it. And even alcohol, many of the alcohols that people drink, they're cheaply made. Oh my gosh, some of these alcoholic beverages, they're supposed to age, the beverages. And what they do is how they age them, because they want to market them. They want to sell them. And the more they sell, the quicker they sell, the more money they make. So they age them with formaldehyde. It's an embalming fluid. I'm telling you the truth. Now this is the paradox here. Is that All these foods, there are some people who eat to escape. They eat to escape this anxiety, or they find their solace in the refrigerator. That's my best friend. You know, the box there in the kitchen, I open it up and he feeds me, and I feel so good when I eat the chocolate. And oh my gosh, the ice cream and all this and that. And they start to binge. Isn't that amazing? It's a negative reinforcement. It fuels it, it feeds it, it just makes it worse and worse and worse and worse. See? And we are creatures of habit. And if you thought about these foods that I shared with you, it's simply, if you think about it, it's just the standard American diet. It's what many people eat day in and day out and day in and day out. And admit it, we're all creatures of habit to some extent, especially when it comes to food. If you go to church, after you go to church, you go to a particular restaurant and you order off the menu, you usually get the same 1, 2, or 3 things, boom, off the menu, because that's what you like. On Monday, you know, mom cooks and you eat that meal. Every Monday, we look forward to having that. On Tuesday, guess what you have? You have the leftovers, or maybe you have a different dish. And then on Wednesday, you might go to church or you go out, whatever, the social meeting, and you're getting my point. And on Friday, it's pizza night, or it's, you know, you've been on a diet and now it's splurge night. So you get to go out with your buds and your social friends, and you're imbibing in this and you're eating there, and you know, oh, I can have my treat, my desserts, and I can do that and do that. But you got to look at the quality of the foods that you're eating real foods. But anyway, it's the standard American diet. It's loaded with man-made fats. It's loaded with those stinking trans fats. It's loaded with sugar, 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 sugar. And though this list that I gave you seems very, very, very small indeed, it basically covers the major gamut, you know, of what most people are doing. And then they wonder why they're not feeling better. Why am I so depressed? Oh, let me go get something to eat. And boom, this is what happens. Okay? All right. And oh, another thing, before I go on, you got to throw out those diet drinks. They are literally killing you. They are destroying your brain. And that's the bottom line. I won't say any more. If you're concerned about your physical and your mental health, quit drinking that garbage right now. I mean, if you got some in the fridge, spill it down the drain. You've done yourself a favor and probably added a few weeks, if not a few months, to your life. And I'm serious. Okay, so now that I lambasted what we're not to eat, then what should you eat? Okay, well, it seems that the list containing the elements that can prove triggering for anxiety is endless, because if you look at it, it goes on, you know, you're sitting there scratching your head. Oh my gosh, then what can I eat, doc? I mean, gee whiz, there's nothing here that's safe. There's nothing that I can eat anymore. Well, I'm here to tell you it is possible to eat a healthy, balanced diet that's also going to help to calm your state of mind, and also it's going to help to repair the damage to your brain. Like foods like root vegetables, they contain what we call vital grounding and soothing properties that can help ease the effects of the cortisol, of that stressor hormone your body's producing, or other stress-related hormones. And you need to eat foods that are rich in the B vitamins and antioxidants and the omega-3 fatty acids. Because the omega-3 fatty acids, they're vital. They're absolutely critically essential for your brain to function properly, and for it to function properly in its release of various hormones. And this is one thing that we check in our center, and I would recommend that when you go to your doctor, whoever it might be, ask them if they do the ratio checks of your omega fatty acids, okay? Because there's various ones and they have to be in the right ratio. And honest to goodness, I've got to tell you from my clinical experience, I have been amazed, you know, at just how fearfully and wonderfully made the body is, because I have tested individuals, and I'm in all seriousness, by the test results that I saw, according to the clinical research, they should have been dead, but they were alive in front of me. That's how amazing the body is. But we check the ratios, and then and then when you get your ratios checked, your doctor will tell you how to go about getting them in the proper proportions. Okay, all right. So anyway, some of the foods, we'll get back to what you want to eat. Let's see, wild salmon. Don't ever get the farm grown. Don't get those farm raised fish. Get the wild caught salmon. Nuts like walnuts, flax seeds, very, very good. Chia seeds. Those are some very good seeds to eat that'll help you out. And they have a lot of benefits as well in reducing your anxiety or the awareness of depression. They'll make you feel better just by eating a few nuts, just a few of those things. Also, as you see on the screen, the blueberries. Oh, these are my faves. I mean, every day, never get tired of eating those things. They are nutritionally dense with a lot of antioxidants, a lot of great benefits to you and to your brain. Almonds, but if you do eat the almonds, I will tell you this, if you're trying to lose weight, I just want to, as a little footnote here, I want to tell you, or an aside, that the walnuts are very high in calories, so just a little handful is a whole lot of calories. But hey, so what? You're going to feel better by eating them. You're going to be more active. You're going to have more energy. That means you're going to get out and walk. You're going to get out and exercise. You're going to get out and do stuff because you're going to feel better. You're going to want to live. So yeah, a few walnuts or almonds here and there, day in, day out. Why not? Spinach, broccoli, spirulina. We use this here. It's a blue-green algae, and we want to get it into the person as quickly as possible. But spirulina is another good thing. Raspberries. Oh, and dark chocolate. Yeah, the darker, the better. So you want to go 74% cacao, or however you want to pronounce it, or above. I mean, the higher, the better. The chocolate, and you could go ahead and eat it. It's really, really good for you. Really good for you. Quinoa and red lentils. If you've had lentil soup, red lentils are very, very good. So, as I was saying about the spirulina, many of these foods fall into what we call, as a nutritionist, or which I am as well, we call them superfoods. And it's a term that we use that describes foods that are simply, they contain really high levels of beneficial nutrients and minerals and vitamins in proportion to their composition. So it's a little bite can give you a whole lot. That's another way of saying it. Just one or two blueberries can give you a whole lot of antioxidants, see? So the more you eat, the better off you're going to be. And they're an excellent source of reducing these anxiety or depression associated type of symptoms, all right? They are definitely nutritionally dense foods. So those are some of the things that you'd want to go ahead and do. And also, I mentioned the B vitamins, okay? B vitamins are some of the most happy hormone-inducing foods of all. They call them the stress vitamins, right? Eating foods that are rich in these vitamins are going to assist you in almost immediate relief of any kind of anxiety or depression you might be experiencing. Green vegetables like asparagus, spinach, avocados, great. Put them on your salads. They're just, or even on your sandwiches. Slice them, put them on your meat sandwiches. They're some of the foods that you can include in your diet, and they'll help you to combat the effects of those high levels of that stress hormone called cortisol. Now, the B vitamins and folic acid, they can also be found in beef, chicken, leafy greens, your legumes, your oranges, and there's other citrus fruits as well. You can find them in rice, nuts, eggs, great source of those things. Eat it liberally, folks. Don't worry about it. You're going to feel better. You're going to burn off more calories. You're going to be more active and engaged in life. It's going to be wonderful. Now, let me say, what do I want to? I want to tell you, though, that the effects of the B vitamins, they will vary on the level of the anxiety for which the person is experiencing. Someone who is experiencing acute anxiety, for example, you may not experience much success with the B vitamins as someone who only has a milder form. But, it's definitely worth trying, because there are a lot of supplements out there you can go and get, or you can get them from your clinician. And your B vitamins are water soluble. That means whatever the body doesn't use, it's going to dispose of through the urine or whatever. And they occur in actually 8 different forms. You got, let me see, B1, 2, 3, B5, 6, and 7, B9, 10, 11, 12, B17, they're all necessary for proper brain function. And if you are deficient in those particular vitamins, like the B vitamins, you may be experiencing fatigue or headaches, nervousness, irritability. Again, the bouts of anxiety recurring, cramping even. A lot of people think it's got to be potassium or magnesium. It could be a deficiency of the B vitamins. And also the tingling in the hands and the feet, even nausea. Those are some symptoms that you might be experiencing if indeed you have a deficiency of the B vitamins, okay? Okay. So let me go on to traditional Chinese medicine. And I include this because I practice Chinese medicine, and I have since the beginning of my practice, as a matter of fact. I use it quite a bit for different conditions and whatnot. And more people are becoming aware of Chinese medicine. And it's one of the most deeply rooted and effective traditions going back in mankind's history. You know, the origin, the ancient Chinese herbalists, they relied on nature and their own understandings of the human body and their mind in order to prevent and to cure diseases. That's what they did. And their focus in Chinese medicine is on the prevention of the onset of disease. And that's where I see it affects my patients most directly. And it's been very, very powerful. However, this is not a cure-all, and it's not a standalone. You have to understand that as well. See, you just have to do that. But when you put all the pieces together, because a lot of people think that if they just do one thing, it's going to clear out the problem. And the problem is a result of a lot of different influences. Patients often ask me, well, how do you think this happened? And my answer has always been, well, everything that you've done, everything has an effect on us to some degree, some more, some less, but all have an effect on us. So what we want to do is to go back to living a balanced lifestyle. And you can do all of these things. You can eat the foods I told you, or not eat the foods I told you not to eat. You can do other things as well. But if your life isn't balanced, if you're not taking care of all of these things, then you're not going to enjoy the success. You're not ever going to be to the point where you're enjoying the best performance of your life, okay? So what you've got to do is you've got to take responsibility in your own health. You've got to make changes in your lifestyles, and your doctor should equip you with the information to do just those things. All right, because as Einstein is credited with saying, if you continue to do the same things over and over, as I said, we're creatures of habit, and you expect a different result, why, you're insane. And boy, when you find out that you're insane, I promise you, you're definitely going to be anxious, and you're going to become very, very depressed when you realize that. All right, okay. So again, if you're going to use Chinese medicine, which is out there, make sure you get to with someone who knows what they're talking about. Okay. So the peppermint and anxiety. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about teas and herbal remedies, because again, this stems, believe it or not, from Chinese medicine. We use a lot of these things as well. The tea leaves have been broadly and acclaimed and acknowledged around the world. It's one of the most effective natural remedies for fighting stress, fighting anxiety, fighting depression. And the beautiful thing about this type of treatment against these symptoms of all of these things that I mentioned is that the effect can be felt almost immediately. And there's very few contraindications, reasons that you can't use them, if any. And one of the best reasons to enlist the help of the herbs like chamomile in the treatment of illness or disease, that unlike many modern medical treatments, there's no toxic fallout after the body's finished processing the benefits. You're not going to create another problem by taking this stuff. So I mentioned the chamomile, lavender. Oh, chamomile and lavender, they have a very specific healing and soothing quality. And you can do this by drinking water that's infused with the leaves of these plants, and you can experience the effects in some situations almost immediately, and it lasts a long, long time. These have been used for centuries around the world in the form of tea leaves. The chamomile, in particular, it's been used for a lot of other ailments as well. You can use it for, and as a clinician, I've recommended it to our patients for like hay fever, inflammation, muscle spasm, menstrual disorders come to mind. Let me see, insomnia, ulcers, wounds, gastrointestinal disorders, rheumatic pain, even hemorrhoids. I mean, and again, it's not, you don't throw this stuff at people and say, take this and it'll cure you. You have to know who you're dealing with, what their history is, what their lifestyle is. But I just put this out there for you that many of the teas are very, very good. Okay. Now I'll talk to you about the peppermint too. It's called the mentha piperita, or peppermint as we know it. It's another herb that lends itself to soothing the effects of your stress, your anxiety, and your depression. And in the form of the herbs or the oil that you can get it can be used in a lot of different ways. You can consume peppermint tea when you're stressed or before you go to bed. It's a great way to really immediately calm yourself down and to prepare yourself for sleep that's ahead, or just to chill out, so to speak. And the menthol base is a natural muscle relaxant, and it also promotes physical sensations that will help you to relax and get you ready to sleep. There's teas like peppermint, the chamomile I mentioned, lavender. They don't contain any caffeine, and they're much more preferable than the caffeine-laden drinks. The peppermint also, I will say, assists you, or it can help with your digestion. If you're having headaches, it can also create a cooling effect. I know that some of my patients have mentioned that is a cooling effect, which will counteract the heated fear. And I use this when we have patients that we can diagnose or have been diagnosed with panic disorders or panic attacks, because there's a heated fear. And it's hard to explain, but it is experienced by people who have panic attacks that's associated with those attacks. And when we give them the peppermint, it creates a cooling effect that just diffuses that heated emotion or sensation that they feel with the onslaught or the promotion of the panic attacks. The peppermint's also used as a natural energizer, and it will help in some cases of acne. It'll help to clear the skin out, and even the sinuses, it can do that as well. But again, it's going to vary, and its effectiveness is going to vary from person to person, individual to individual. All right? So I've covered that pretty well. Let's talk about the environment and nature as well. One aspect is that, and it's been underrated in terms of impact that it can have on your health and on your mental well-being, and that's your environment, the place where you live, where you work, and the people that you surround yourself with at work or at home or socially. They are contributing factors to heightened levels of your anxiety or your depression or whatever, or your stress. The trouble is that many people who struggle with these stresses, these anxieties, and these depressions, they neglect to consider the effect that the environment has as a factor that contributes to their suffering. So they never recognize it. But you've got to see these things, okay? That's why it's so important to go to a practitioner that will sit down and find out all of these different aspects, because it makes sense that what we experience externally is going to impact our senses and our quality of being internally, our happiness and how we process it. And that's why it's so important. It's said in the Bible that bad company corrupts good morals. Well, let me just use that train of thought for a moment and say that, when you're around a lot of negativity, and it brings you down, really it does, unless you are strong and you just forward through it. But the negativity, it just wears you out. And, all of these things, we live in a society today where people have convinced themselves that they can multitask. And when you get onto the internet, you're just bombarded, as I said. And I don't know the numbers, but it's up in the thousands. Believe me when I say this, I forget where I was reading this information, but we are bombarded with literally thousands of messages in a day, all clamoring for our attention, all clamoring for our time, and wanting us to react to it, to make a decision based upon it, and to do something with it. The Bible is, and I said this, I'll go back to the Bible again. It tells us that there are many voices in the world and none without meaning. They all have an effect on us, even though we may not realize it. And we're being bombarded. How many times have you tried to go to sleep and you found yourself in a place where your brain doesn't shut off? Because you're worried about not this moment, but you're worried about not just tomorrow, but stuff that's in a week or 2 or 3 weeks down the road, and all of these other things. They're just clamoring for your attention. And it's just, that's the world that we live in. But you've got to control it. You've got to focus, as they say, one thing at a time. Do one thing, complete it, and then move on to the next. I'm prehistoric in that way. That's the way your body is. And if you attempt to delude yourself into thinking you can do all these things and get them all done, well, you may have some success, but it's going to be short-lived at best, and you will pay a price for it. I'm telling you that it's been proven that stress levels rise in unpleasant environments. And who wants to do this, do that, do this, do that? I mean, that's an unpleasant environment. And that's going to affect your emotional comfort, and it's going to affect, your gut, your brain, everything. And you're just not going to want to be there. And, you're going to hate to go to work. You're going to hate to be around these people. You're going to hate to be confronted with this situation all the time, because you're constantly thinking about it. And remember, I told you that one of the things in being anxious is that you've lost control. That's what fear is. It's being in a situation where you, the individual in the midst of it, has absolutely no control over the results. That's it. That's what anxiety, and then when you realize that, you become depressed. One leads to another. You're just thinking about it. And if you don't feel good, if you're not comfortable, and you're not in an environment that's pleasing to you, then it affects your ability to function. It affects the product that you're attempting to produce. It affects your social interaction with your spouse, with your loved ones, with your friends. I mean, you become miserable. And you realize you're miserable, and you don't want to be around. You don't even feel at home in your own skin anymore. You don't even like yourself. You see where this goes? And what people do is they want to escape it. They want to escape themselves and the environment they're in, the life that they're living. So they turn to a drug, or they turn to a substance and whatnot. Well, that's not the answer. The answer is going back to the beginning, finding out what's causing it. And then when you do, making some changes, right? Okay, so in doing that, let's talk about the essential oils or the aromatherapy. One thing that can assist with creating a more positive, a more calm-inducing, anxiety-soothing, depress-eliminating home environment could be simply by using diffusing essential oils. All natural essential oils like lavender, oh, it's great. Peppermint, and it's chamomile, and there's a whole bunch of them, but they're all known, many of them are known to have positive effects on individuals that are under stress or suffering with anxiety. So it's a good idea, You might invest in a little diffuser or something that you can use in the house. Use it when the family's not there, fill it up so that when they come home, and they're breathing, they're calming down. They're calming down, and they're not so anxious. And it's going to help you while you're there as well. So let me explain to you a little bit about it. Because the essential oils, what they do is they contain tiny aromatic molecules. And these molecules can actually pass through the blood-brain barrier, and they do so immediately. So when you take a breath in, it's harnessed to the red blood cells in the blood. The blood goes straight up to the brain, and you got those little molecules there, and they're depositive, and boom, they go right through the blood-brain barrier. So You take that deep breath, and by doing so a couple, 3 times, you already feel a little bit better. The anxiety, depression, the panic, all of those things just seem to, there's oh, what is it? Oh, it's a bath something frame. Oh, it's Calgon. This is a Calgon, take me away. And it's not the warmth of the bath, it's the fragrance, it's the aroma. And you see, just lay back, and it's soothing to the body, that warm water, and you smell it, and oh my gosh, it's so relaxing, and you forget about what you were worried about. So this is great, because this is not anecdotal, this is for real. Lavender, as a matter of fact, is known to affect the central nervous system directly, which is associated with your sensations and the intents of the anxiety and the stress that you feel. See, so essential oils are they're extremely versatile, and they can be used in a number of ways. You can use them from the diffusion, to incorporating them into your skin, to hair care routine, to some oils even adding benefits to the food that you're eating. There's countless recipes online that you can get that help you to be creative with your oils, and the effects and the uses are just as broad, really. And depending upon the need that you have, will determine the oil that you can use that will promote the effects and target different problem areas, whether they be of your mind or of your body. Some of the ways are you can inhale them directly, like I talked about the Calgon, the scent there. If you have an oil, you can put 1 or 2 drops, and you can in a cup in your palms, and you could rub it a little bit, and then just take a couple long, deep breaths. Breathe in nice and slowly, and exhale even longer. 4 to the count of 4 in, and the count of 7 or 8 out, and do that a few times just by 1 or 2 drops. Or you can take these oils, and you can put 1 or 2 drops, and you can oil them into your temples, or your wrists. You can put them into your wrists. And that will amazingly help you to relax. If you're on the go, I've told I have patients, individuals that are very stressed. They have a lot of they live under anxiety, and some even depression. And I'm talking about my high-end athletes, believe it or not. So what I tell them to do is say, look, when you're traveling, put a few drops on a hanky or on a scarf that you have around your neck, or put it on a cotton pad that you put in your luggage or whatever, and you inhale it. Put it around your neck, man, and you look very stylish, but also you're relaxed, because some of these events really are very stressful, because their contract may be on the line. The purse that they're going for, whether it be a few, tens of thousands, 100,000s of dollars, whatever it might be, it's very, very stressful. They need to be calm and relaxed. And that's a way to use it. And that diffuser that I mentioned, that's a great way to do it. You can get them at many of these stores. And you can put those oils in there. You can use all different kinds, and even you can use them topically. Some of these stronger oils, you can use an oil carrier, because some of you may have sensitive skin. You can put olive oil on your skin first, and then on top of it, put one of those oils, those essential oils, and then rub it in. Or you can use fractionated coconut oil, anything like that that'll carry it into your body. Great way to do it, okay? Those are the essential oils. And I wanted to mention those because they are very powerful. And then we come to activity. Now, look, this is what you got to do. When you start to feel better, you got to start to act better. You got to engage. Exercise is tremendously beneficial, and it's one of the most invigorating and effective ways that you can go ahead and combat when you're feeling anxious, when you're in a bout of anxiety, stress, or depression. Get out there and exercise, start moving, because you're going to produce what are called endorphins. Those are the feel-good hormones there. Even after a short 10-minute walk, you're going to feel so much better by doing that. And it's shown scientifically. It'll elevate your mood. It makes you more physically active. And you're going to have fewer and far between bouts of anxiety, depression, or the stress or just overwhelming you. There's a lot of studies out there. It promotes activity in the brain. It produces various hormones, and then you just feel better, about yourself overall. Whether it's yoga or running, you can do climbing. Even if you have a flight of stairs at home, go up and down the stairs a few times. You don't have to run. Just go up and down the stairs, maybe 5 or 10 times, whatever. Weightlifting, swimming, hiking, all of those effects of moving the body and engaging in physical activity or exercise, they really will benefit you, and they will reduce the stress, the anxiety, the depression. And what you got to do is what you want to just experiment. Find out which activity suits you. And then when you find out what you like, simply do it. That's all you got to do. Incorporate it into your activities of daily living. Do it on a regular basis each and every day. Okay? All right. And now I got to talk about the gut-brain digestion. I teach a lot on this anyway. If you've ever experienced indigestion, then you know how uncomfortable and how stress-inducing it can be. It can actually render you incapable on focusing on anything. You're just not there because you're upset. It makes you irritable. You can be anxious to be around. People notice, well, what's the matter with you? What's the matter with you? And this is only when it happens once in a while. But can you imagine, though, if this was happening to you on an everyday, regular occurrence after every meal? So, I talk to people that suffer with celiac disease, and those are the ones that are going to be familiar with this in particular. But even if you're not, if you don't have the disease, we've all experienced that kind of discomfort. The negative and the bad moods that come with it, that result from a period of indigestion. You just don't feel right, and you've lost that love and feeling, so to speak. That's why it's so important here to understand that. And there's a theory that the gut bacteria are intricately and intimately linked to our brain via the nervous system. And I know this for a fact. I teach on it. Anyway, the gut microbiome or the probiotics that you folks have been told about, it's really important. But it's going to be affected by the foods that you are eating as well as the foods that you discontinue to eat. And by doing that, your body's going to be able to promote those microbiomes, those probiotics once again, and that's going to benefit you as well. So eating clean foods, eating organic foods, eating fermented foods, those are going to help you in restoring a semblance of a healthier gut. If you want the heavy-duty commercial grade, then what you've got to do is go to your clinician and see what he or she has to offer so that they can seed the probiotics back into you, the prebiotics and the symbiotics as well. Okay? But that's a start for you in the foods that you're eating. Also now, the flow state and the creative anxiety relief. Now, in days past, we used to have what were called aha moments. I like to call them, in my life, I like to call them Einstein moments, where I have a moment of brilliance. I really do, and I'm not being facetious here. I can be thinking about something or going along. I'm preparing a class that I'm going to teach, at another symposium or whatever. And I know that my audience is going to be these type of doctors, and this is their forte. This is their focus of attention. This is my subject. And I'll be going along, and all of a sudden, I'll have a burst of brilliance. I'll have what I call my Einstein moment, where I can't write fast enough. I can't put down the information quickly enough for fear of losing it. There's a burst of brilliance. I mean that. And I'm having, and you can have them more and more and more when you are focused. When you're focused. Look, when you are one of those that thinks you can multitask, you just can't do it. And you won't be experiencing what's now called the flow state, where all of this stuff, it just comes out of you, and you start writing it down, or you start getting these ideas, or these new visions or these new goals, and you start boom, 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 you have it, you know. They're just few and far between. People aren't experiencing those anymore. And it's because of all of this technology that we have, as I talked about earlier. So what you've got to do is you've got to unplug a lot of this stuff. Just do one thing at a time, you know, to find your flow, if you will. And you can do this, you know. How many times have you tried to read a book or read an article and you can't do it? You can't finish it. Or if you do, you don't know how you got to the end of it and you have no idea what you just read and you got to do it all over again. That's because your brain is firing all over the place, you know, thinking about this, thinking about that, or you're drifting into this or drifting into that. What you've got to do is to start to retrain. You've got to go back. And this is what I recommend you do. You want to start reading a book. It's a lost art. Really, and I say this because I study I'll tell you what this is the research. This is what I'm sharing with you. I'm sharing with you clinical information here that I share with doctors. But reading increases your ability to focus. Yes, the more you do it, the better at it you'll become. It's an action, it's an exercise of your brain that will increase your ability to focus. See, we live in a world today, and it's been said by the marketers, if you don't catch the person's attention in the first 3 to 5 seconds, you don't get them. That's it. It's amazing. You know, this statement, it's an indictment against us, you know, of how flippant and how shallow and how excited, how stressed we are, in that if you don't get my attention within 3 to 5 seconds, you've lost me. That's why these people don't read anymore. It's the videos they've got, and you've got to get their attention in the video within the first 3 to 5 seconds. If you don't, even that is an exercise in vain. That's where we are today, you know, and we've all been affected by it to some degree. You see people, guys, will sit there with TV controllers and they boom, 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 and they're going through the TV. How in the world do you know what the show's about if they aren't hooked in the first few moments that they pushed? After they push the button, they're off to the next station. I'm telling you the truth. So how do you get back to it? Well, this is what you want to do. You want to go back to reading. Read a book. You read a book, make sure your husband or your wife reads a book, make sure your kids start reading a book. You're making an investment in their brain for the next 50, 60, 70 years. I'm telling you, their brains are being stolen from them. I'm very serious about that. But start reading, because it will increase your ability and their ability to focus, to pay attention. And that, because and it's the principle here of that Einstein moment, that burst of brilliance or the flow state. It's that the more we engage, the easier it becomes to assess it. See, and the more you do it, the easier it's going to become. And now, and the more creative the individual is gonna be, they're gonna stimulate their imagination. Remember, reading a book, you had to create your own pictures, your own cinematography. You had to create, everything was created in your mind. You could see the people you were reading about. You could smell the flowers that they were describing, or the countryside through which they were riding, or it was a hot, sultry day in Kansas, and man, you could feel the heat. You may have even started to perspire because of it. See, you're engaging more of your brain. Gosh, this is a gold nugget I'm trying to give you here. And when you do these things, even if it's a simple book, it doesn't have to be any war and peace novel. You can start out with a simple book, and when you do that, I'm telling you, your brain is going to become stronger. Your imagination is going to become more vibrant. Your focus is going to become, oh my gosh, it's just going to become magnified. The quality of the work that you produce is going to become better. Your life is going to get richer. I'm telling you, and you're going to be able to enjoy life a whole lot more. I know this sounds corny, but golly gee, just challenge me with this one, okay? And tell me after doing it for a month, do it for a month, like every night, just a few paragraphs or whatever, a few chapters, increase it daily. Look, it's a muscle. Your brain's like a muscle. Exercise it. So put that demand on it, and at the end of the month, you let me know if your life hasn't improved all the way around and your relationships haven't improved. I'm serious. Challenge me on this, okay? All right. Now, the yoga and the meditation, I'm not going to get deep into that. I know a lot of people are into yoga. That's great. That's a thing that you can do. The mindful breathing is very good. Just pull the plug. Do the breathing exercises, do the yoga. I'm not into the philosophy of the yoga, but if this is the way it gets you to pull the plug and disconnect from life around you, then go for it. If you're going to meditate on that which is good and pure and of good report. Those of you that are into the Bible, he tells you to keep your mind stayed upon him, and he'll keep you in his shalom. That's that peace that passes all understanding. Meditate on good stuff. Even, and I'm not intending on being morbid, but I will tell you this. The greatest of epitaphs is found in the fondest of memories. When you think back on a family member that is no longer with you, you think on all the good stuff, the good times you used to have, the jokes, the laughter. And when you think on those things, if it was grandma, you're going to get to the point where you're going to be able to smell her cookies. And let me tell you, you can share with your kids. We used to come around in the stove and grandma would do this, and Bubba would do whatever, whoever. And that she would bake these donuts, and oh my gosh, or pierogies, or these cookies, and we'd fight over it getting them, and they were so good when you got them when they were warm out of the oven, and oh my gosh. And you think on those things, you think on that, and I'm telling you, a sense of well-being, of peace, of happiness will come over you. And yeah, you're going to miss them. That's the way you're made. That's how it should be. When you love much, you miss much. That's the price that you and I are willing to pay for those types of people in our lives, for the relationships we have. But when you go back, oh my gosh, you're back in that moment, or even if it's music, I don't know where you are in life, but put the music on that you used to dance to, if you are that old, that you used to dance. I don't know what young people do today. I really don't. I'm not being condescending or irreverent in any way. But put on back to that. That music has a way of taking you back to the good times, to the good old days. You know what I mean? And just closing your eyes and being there. Or get on a PBS channel and go back, with those broadcasts they have, and relive those days. My goodness. I know a lot of people say, I wouldn't want to go back, but I don't know. If you didn't want to go back, maybe it's because you're focusing on the wrong memories. Go back and focus on the good stuff. Really, it'll do you good. But those are the places that you want to be and the things that you want to do. Okay, so that's my spiel on the meditation, my recommendation for you, whoever you are. Okay, now we're almost finished, and we're almost at the end of this today, and I want to know, maybe I've triggered some thoughts in your mind just by what I said. And let me ask you real quickly, how's it make you feel? If you're thinking while I was talking about your grandma, your grandpa, your husband, your wife, or whatever, or this person, and you were thinking on a good memory, I'm telling you, as you felt good for those few moments, you really did. You felt good. See, you proved my point, okay? So I hope you got something out of this that's going to be beneficial to you. I really do challenge you, and I hope you'll put me to the task and try to prove me. All right? See if those things that I've shared with you aren't going to be a benefit to you. And if they are, please share them with others. And if you know a person that's in the throes of anxiety or depression, or is overwhelmed with stress, or is in bondage to that, look, pharmaceuticals, let them watch this, for what it's worth. Let them watch this. Tell them about it. We're going to try to post this so that they can see this too. Okay? So that this will be a gift that'll keep on giving and giving and giving. Hey, again, I want to thank you. I want to thank you very much for allowing me to take this opportunity to share with you all of this information today. I know that this is going to be a benefit to you if you act upon it. And if there's any other additional information that you'd like or any questions that you might have, please, it's an open invitation. Please contact us. You can call us, you can email us, whatever. Get in touch with us. We're here to help you. This is part of our reason for being. We want to help you out, okay? So again, I want to thank you. Until the next time, and as always, you got to remain proactive in order to enjoy the best performance of your life. And may God bless you. Okay? Take care.